you?
Good, good. Hanging in there.
Awesome. Well, let's introduce ourselves, or do you want to wait for a few more people to join us?
It's up to you, whenever. I'm ready.
Okay. Where are you headed?
I'm actually headed home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So I'm Zane. I go to Maple Heights High School.
What high school?
Maple Heights.
Maple Heights? Okay. What grade are you in?
Oh, I'm going to the 11th in the fall. To the 11th in the fall.
Hold on one second. I'm actually going to put my headphones in, okay?
Gotcha.
All right. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, my name is Gloria Augusto Davis, and I'm a program manager at the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. And I'm a program manager for our 216s program, which is a teen pregnancy prevention program. And today we've invited one of our Youth Leadership Council members, Zane, who we're just going to have a candid conversation about racism and kind of like what's been going on in the world. Because it's so, there's just so much, right?
Right.
So, a lot of times when we think about teen pregnancy prevention, a lot of times we're looking at statistics related to it. And, just like so many other health issues, teen pregnancy also has health disparities between Black and white youth in our community. And this is true for Cuyahoga County and the United States. But what most people don't stop and think about is kind of like the systems that have been in place that kind of contribute to those disparities happening. And one of those things is systematic racism. And so right now, a lot of protests are happening around our country and around the world, trying to just basically demand equality for all people. And basically, hoping and wanting basically everyone to have the same opportunities and the same kind of shot at life.
Right.
So can you tell me, some of your thoughts or feelings about some of the protests that have taken place?
So a lot of the protests, of course, I want people to be able to speak their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all for it, but there's also a certain way that you can go about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when people go looting and all that, I really don't understand why. But then that's not going to cost us. No, they're not going to want to make a difference. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
we all have to be able to understand one another. In order to do that, we all have to make changes for ourselves. And stop to do certain things or stop the looting. And be able to talk. You know what I'm saying? So, like the looting, that's not going to stop the talk. That's not going to start us to talking. But if we started protesting, and let them see a difference, then they might want to be able to sit down with us and have this conversation with us.
Yeah, I mean, we talked the other day with Jamia, and this kind of came up, the looting. And sometimes I think, that it's a small percentage of the people that are actually causing that destruction,
Right.
And unfortunately, that kind of gets in the way of the message that we're, trying to convey, which is we just want equal rights, and we don't want to be treated differently for, because of the color of our skin.
Right.
And we certainly don't want the police to, attack us because of that or murder us. And I feel like that just keeps happening more and more. So speaking of the police, how do you think the police have been responding to the protests?
Well, it depends. Like, so in some areas, I feel like the police officers are doing what they can do. They try to do the best they can do, but they can't do the best they can do if the protesters won't work with them.
Mm-hmm.
So people be yelling like they have a job to protect and serve, and that's what they're trying to do. But then when you have these protesters that are doing the wrong thing, so now they have to do something, and now it's being. And the thing about it is that when people record the police officers, they always doing something wrong or something, but they don't get the whole situation. Probably that person that they're talking to did something wrong, And so I feel as the police officers during this protest time, I feel like they're doing the right thing. But but sometimes they're not. And so again, what we need to do is come on one basis to understand where we need to talk and where do we need to come from.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think is one thing that we could do, either as like individuals or as a community, to basically show support for one another during this time?
Well, I know as a community, especially like I've been as a community, I think that's what, again, communication to me is key. To any problem, communication is key. So in order for us to get together is communication. But for community wise, I believe that in some communities you have these police officers that don't even live in that community. I feel like if it was police officers that work and live in your community, you have a better response of
Yes.
um you have a better
Yes.
response of how it's going to evolve.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You have a better response of how the situations are because these police officers live in the community, so they know how the people are and how they act.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember like kind of back in the day, I live in Cleveland, and back in the day, like the police officers used to have to live in the city of Cleveland, and they kind of changed that and they got away from that. I'm not sure why, but I mean, I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. Like if they kind of lived and worked in that community, then maybe they would have more rapport with the residents and kind of have like more communication that would be sort of natural and not like kind of forced, during situations of unrest or, protests.
Right.
So I don't know. What can we do to change that? It's kind of
Um.
like one of those things you feel like, where do you even start,
Yeah. Right. But I believe in some communities, is these civil leaders, these leaders in the community, they don't make an effort to get to the neighbors, to get to the community itself, to get out to people to communicate. They think that they can, since they have these positions that, everybody's going to agree with them, which is not the case. And so I believe that in order to have a change is actually to have your mayor, to have your councilman, your councilwoman come out and come out and speak to these people so that they know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Because if I made a law, if I said something about the community, I would want the people that's living in the community to know what am I talking about? How is this going to affect them, personally? And some don't do that, and that's why these big old issues come from.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Now this is kind of a personal question, so if you want to pass, that's fine.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced a situation where your race seemed to contribute to a problem or an uncomfortable situation?
Now, not that I know of, but you hear stories, so I always think it could have been me. It could be me. So I'm always like
Mm-hmm.
ready for the whenever it comes up. But not me personally, never experienced anything like that.
So how are you ready? Like what do you do to become ready to kind of face something like that?
Well, I just know, like, looking at the stories, I know, okay, so if this situation happens, this is how I can prevent it, Um, if I get pulled over by a police officer, I know that I need to it's better if I have my information out before they even get to my window, instead of them coming to ask for it,
Mm-hmm.
or, don't do sudden movements, or don't say sudden words that can provoke people, because, those words can also provoke me. So, just using my mind, make the right decisions at the right time.
Mm-hmm. So I think something you're kind of bringing up is like de-escalation. So kind
Yeah.
of preventing things from sort of getting out of hand before that happens, which is, we just saw that happen in Atlanta.
Right.
So, you know, how old were you, or do you recall how old you were when maybe your parents started having these types of conversations with you?
Um, well, it wasn't so long ago, probably in middle school, just
Mm-hmm.
because in middle school, I feel like that's when people should, I believe personally, is when I, as a person, start trying to find myself, or a lot of students try to find themselves. And so they go through this stage of they think they know everything. And so I feel like it was a great opportunity when my parents had this conversation with me, so that I know, like, you going through this stage, but there's also rules and guidelines you need to follow.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I'm raising a son myself. Well, actually two. So one's 14 and well, about to be 14, and one's 8. And, unfortunately, they've already experienced situations with racism,
Right.
even at that young age. One of the things that have happened to them is like people calling them the N word on like Xbox Live.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like sometimes that happens because people are kind of behind the screen, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think that's another issue on this racial thing is the internet. Plays a huge part in why things are this way now because of how people can hide behind a screen.
yeah, I agree. Has that ever happened to you, like internet trolls or anything like that?
Well, no, not me personally, because I don't really like to play the game. But like I know,
Mm-hmm.
like my brothers and them, they play the game, and so so they get those type of comments or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And how do they deal with that?
Well, luckily they just brush it off, but some people actually take it seriously. They take it as a provocative way, and so they try to end up hurting themselves. But so luckily my brothers, they just brush it off and move on and don't pay any mind. That's what I think. A lot of issues now is a lot of issues now, or how people get in trouble, is because they don't brush it off. Sometimes it just calls for you to be the bigger person. You know what I mean? It might not hurt to be the bigger person, but I'm saying it pays a huge role if you be the bigger person in the long run.
Yeah, it can. Sometimes it's easier said than done, you know?
Right.
Sometimes, you know, you only have but so many buttons to push, you know?
Right.
Um, so do you, let's ask the audience. Audience, do you guys have any specific questions that you would like to ask Zhane? Give them a couple moments to chime in. So if you're just joining us, Zhane is one of our Youth Leader Council members, and he's here today talking with us. You know, the topic that we wanted to discuss today was racism and police brutality. He's a teen at Maple Heights High School. And Zhane, what is one thing that you're looking forward to this summer?
Just to be away from school, because with this distant learning, it wasn't my cup of tea. It
Yeah.
really wasn't my thing. So to be away from school
Mm-hmm.
and just get
You
a break.
think? I agree. I think I was more excited than my kids when school was over with this year.
Yeah.
It was a lot to manage.
Yeah.
And I feel like, do you think the schools kind of expect too much from you all, like in terms of having to like do your own learning?
Oh, I believe, especially now since we're at home, I believe that teachers think that we have all this time in the world to give us this work, which in reality we don't. In case some people really started working during
Mm-hmm.
during this time, so they really not focused on the schoolwork. If you can barely get a child to do the work in class, and they have less distractions. I don't know why they thought that they can send all this work and they have way more distractions at home than they do at school. But hey, I try my best to communicate with my teachers, but some of them didn't understand. But it's okay. It just takes them a little time.
Yeah, it definitely does. So if you're out there in the audience, do you have any questions for Zhane? Can you see the questions on your end too?
Yeah.
Okay. So Zhane, as a youth leader this year, kind of things also kind of got cut short with coronavirus
Right.
happening, and there were a number of things that you guys didn't get a chance to do. So if you were ever to participate again, what are some things that maybe you would want to make sure that we do next year?
Um, a lot of next year is more likely just to get involved with the teens. Um, like this year, which we were going to be able to do, when the spring summer hit, but just probably a little quicker, just because we never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just getting more involved because I know like I have friends myself, ask to what 216s is, and so I would give them information, but I wish that I could do a little bit more of a way of communicating what we do and how we can help them or how they can support us in so many different ways.
So what are some of those things that you wish we could have did?
Like those, like what did we plan on? Like we was planning on doing booths or whatever, going to each
Mm-hmm.
other's school, Yeah, and because I feel like the only way, like, just only way that teens my age or people my age only can get this information if it's passed through other teens. You know what I'm saying? So like, if I end up, they will understand where it's coming from instead of an adult or like trying to explain to them. Because having me myself don't. If somebody comes to speak, you know, I'm going to listen. But is it really going to really connect to my head? Understand where I'm coming from? But you know, if it's, you know, so if I would have did it, they might see where I'm coming from. They might understand at a different level than what an adult comes from, because I'm living it as long as they are. You know, adult, they
Mm-hmm.
lived it. It's that, but it's the different time period, and that's what I think a lot of teachers especially really don't understand. Is this is a different time, a totally different time period from when they were in school,
Mm-hmm.
and so that the ways that they were taught can be altered a little bit so that we can understand, or so that they can help us in many ways.
I agree with that. I mean, I think that, as you know, from my viewpoint, I do view young people as kind of like the experts in their own life and their own experiences. And I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. You know, like if teens are kind of delivering that message, it definitely, I think, kind of it hits a little different
Yeah,
versus like a grown up, you know, an adult. So I'm sure like if you had a conversation with my son right now, it would totally go different than if I was trying to like have that same conversation with him.
right.
So do you think like next year, like, because I think kind of what you're talking about is like more like mentorship in a way.
Yeah,
So do you think like opportunities for, you know, some of our members who've maybe been with us for a couple of years, like maybe they can lead some sort of youth groups or things like that?
yeah, because I know, like, even when I'm sitting down with my siblings, like if you know, mentoring them, and that's a big thing. I'm on this mentorship, whether it be a boy mentorship, or a woman to girl, or even just, you know, friends, because a friend can always be a mentor to each other, to always push each other to do, you know, the right things. And so I think that's the best way for anybody to learn. I know that's what I'm big on, this mentorship. If I can help anybody in any way, by mentoring them or helping them with certain information, it helped them go a long way.
Can you remind me what year you're going into this upcoming school year?
Being my 11th year, well,
11.
being 11th grade, yeah.
Okay. So you got quite a ways away before you can kind of get out there and vote and stuff like that. But what are some things that either like people your age or kind of maybe even up into young adulthood can kind of sort of do like to support the movements that are happening in our community right now?
I believe just speaking out, because um, when people go vote, and they have to realize that when they vote, these things also affect us. And, you know, when these especially when older people, you know, they vote or whatever, and then they go home and die, but these things that you voted on will affect us eventually. So even
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about in the moment, but you also think about in the future too. You know, they always say that you know, the kids are the future, but without the adults setting us the right path, or telling us what to do, or voting on what's right for us to be able to do these right things, then it's no way we can do it. So I believe that voting is a good thing. So we should all be able to speak out on issues. And I believe that teens, especially, they might not be into it, but I believe teens should really get into politics, not as much, but just to understand of what everybody's talking about, because or what you're talking about, like just your legislative, your executive, all of that, just because of you might not understand. So if you understand where they're coming from, you might understand why they vote this way, why not, and you can see how this affects you. And if it doesn't affect you in a positive way, then you need to be able to speak out and tell and say why, and see if you can change these people's minds or their perspective, and to help you.
Mm-hmm. So I hear you saying a couple things. You're telling the adults, you're calling us out. You're saying, hey, don't leave us with a mess, basically, for when you get to the age that you can start voting and things like that. Um, but also kind of just having an understanding of sort of like the judicial and legislative process. And I think that that's something that's really rings true to me, because it's something that I, even as an adult, have to continuously learn. Like, well, what does that mean? Or what, you
Yeah.
know, who are these people and what roles do they play and sort of what's happening in our lives? You know what I mean? Because it can be a trickle down effect for sure.
Yeah, and I believe like when it comes to voting, for anybody, I want them to understand on what they're voting on, because some people vote on what their family voted on, or what part of their family is, or who's running and why this. But if you don't understand it, you shouldn't be voting for it. If you understand what I'm saying. So I think you should take the time, not even just 30 minutes, to take the time, see who's running, what they're running for, and how they can change me personally. How can it affect me personally?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I've been at the voting booth with my phone out trying to, get
Yeah.
some information, because it's like, oh, what does this mean? All this jargon and these words that I may not really totally understand. So, I think that's some really, really good advice. I see some new audience members joined us. We're here with Zhane. If you have any questions that you want to for us to discuss, please feel free to comment below. So Zhane, I know we've kind of talked about a whole lot of things today. What else do you want to talk about today?
Well, I really want to hit on how people perceive this police, and how people perceive the police, basically, because right now the police are perceived as a terrible group of people who are trying to do the wrong thing, which I believe is not true. I was just sitting with my grandmother, and we were talking about it, and how most of them want the right thing. It's some, and it's a few that are not with what's right, but some of them, and we have to be able to understand it, because that's how we're going to change. And people think all police officers are the same, and how I know I don't like to be in a stereotype, but that's how the police see us, as a stereotype, when they think all black people are the same. It's because we don't give them a chance to show who they really are. Like, we want them to give us a chance, and that's why we're protesting, because we want them to know that we're not all the same, and we want to change in that, and we want you all to change too. But when people protest, that's okay, you protesting, but then you go on about your day. You need to be able to make an effort and continue to protest until something makes a difference. And that's why I think, like, when it comes to the news, when they show people protest, they're like, this is day 3 of protest, but then they stop. I mean, it should go on as long as it goes on. It needs to be shown so that people know that things are not being changed. Things cannot go back to normal until things get changed. But in order to that get changed, we need to be able to talk and to get rid of these stereotypes of that all people are the same, all this people who do this job are the same, or people of this race are the same.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think there's something to be said for everyone has maybe a little bit of work to do, and maybe kind of challenge some of those stereotypes that we've sort of grown up with. And I think part of that is really kind of just being around people that maybe aren't exactly like you.
Yeah.
So in your kind of educational or extracurricular activities, like, do you get opportunities to interact with people who maybe aren't exactly like you?
Well, in the group, the 216 group, we all come from different backgrounds. So I think that's a great opportunity to see where people's minds are and see where they come from, because we're all different. But a lot of things, when I go speak tomorrow at this event, and I can see where everybody comes from, to show, and so I can tell them where I come from. You know what I mean? And so, with that being said, we can all understand each other.
So can you tell the audience a little bit about your upcoming speaking engagement and kind of give it a shout out?
Okay, so I'll be speaking tomorrow. It's I'll be speaking tomorrow at this event. It'll be at 6:00. It's at a church. Let me see.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you no more. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Oh, sorry, but no.
That's okay.
The event tomorrow will be at 5250 Arch Street, inside the church. and it'll just be me, my mayor, our councilman, and a whole bunch of other councilmen and people in the community who wants a difference. And we'll just be speaking about how we can make a change, you know. And I feel like that's what I think a lot of people do now. Well, I agree with a lot of people now is they are trying to make an effort, but they can't make an effort if people don't come out, you know, and say what they need to be, what needs to be said. So I feel like that, and so I applaud all these people that are trying to make a difference, you know, having these events, but without the people that come out to say what needs to be changed, it won't be a difference.
So can people join just in person, or can they join virtually?
It's in person. I don't know if we can join virtually, but I know it is in person. So it'll be from 6 to 8. And feel free to come, feel free to speak on what you need to be, what you feel like needs to be spoken on about, and how can we make a change about it.
Well, that's awesome that you said this is happening at a church.
Yes, 5250 Ark Street. That's the address.
Okay, so it's awesome that the church is opening its doors for these important conversations. And I think maybe the key takeaway, or one of the key takeaways for me, is like kind of just could keep the conversation going. You know, like this is sort of just the start. You know, of course, we're not going to resolve all the world problems, you and I here together.
Right.
But, you know, I think it's definitely an invitation to others to kind of have these maybe kind of difficult conversations. And hopefully that can kind of spur up some change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have any final thoughts or any other final calls to action that you want to share with your peers or adults?
I know, but I want to say thank you, you know, for having this conversation with me. But then again, I want to leave with everyone today is without communication, you cannot get nowhere. I feel like, and again, I repeat it as many times until it gets through to a lot of people. That's the only way you can make a difference. Looting, you're not going to make a difference. You know, fighting, you're not going to make a difference. Resisting, you're not going to make a difference. But communicating with your higher ups, not even just with someone, you might communicate with a friend, and that friend might know someone. You know, so just get what you feel is necessary. Get it out as best as you can to ask people to support you, so that things that you believe in should be changed can be changed.
Thank you. Well, I can applaud that. Thank you so much, Zhane. I appreciate you taking the time and you know, sharing your thoughts with me. I know it's not always an easy conversation to have. So I appreciate this, and hopefully we can do more of this in the future.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if there's no other questions from the audience, I think we can sign off until next time. All right. Bye.
Bye.